Nick in Jersey. What's up, Nick?
Hey, so my question is, what if your team's season is on the line and they need to win this game to go to the playoffs, Jerry? Let's say your kid is on the Giants. The Cowboys need to win this game in order to make the playoffs, but the Giants season, they're completely out of it no matter what, but the Cowboys need to win this game.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Ben Kruse. This is another edition of Moving the Goalpost. You can follow us across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart. You can follow Ben at Ben Kruse144. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. You can listen to all Empty the Bench shows on ETBpodcast.com. And you can listen to all Empty the Bench shows. You can listen to Moving the Goalposts wherever you get your podcast. And make sure to like and subscribe. You can, and of course, this show is presented by Playback. Stay tuned for later in the show to find out more. All right. So it's the middle of July, and I think our number one story right now is Wimbledon. Sinner. Well, I'm a tennis fan, and I think you're a tennis fan too. So yes. I care a whole lot about it. As a tennis fan, I don't really get a lot. I don't have a whole lot of opportunity to talk about it on this show because it just isn't relevant for most of the year. Sinner won in 4 sets, and is this like? I guess the ultimate question is this like the next great rivalry in tennis? And like, where will it stack up? Because I think in tennis, we need I think that the reason men's tennis has always, the biggest reason has always been doing so much better than women's tennis is that in women's tennis, usually there's like one dominant player. They don't win every time, but there's one dominant player. Right now, I would say it's probably Swiatek or Sabalenka. It was Serena Williams at one point. But in men's tennis, it's more about rivalries. There's 2 or 3 guys up top, and it's been that way for like 30 years. There's been 2 or 3 guys for a little bit of time, even 4, with rivalries. And right now, it seems to be the era of like Sinner and Alcaraz. Alcaraz has 5 slams. Sinner now has 4. And they're already approaching, and they're both like 23 years old. In fact, Alcaraz isn't even 23 yet. And they already have 4 combined, have 9 slams. I just think obviously it's the next great rival. There's not even really much of an argument about that, but it's like the question is, will it compare to, say, the Federer-Nadal rivalry or like the Nadal-Djokovic rivalry? The fact that it's 2 guys instead of 3 makes it a little less, obviously, but it's like the future of tennis.
Yeah, no, obviously, like yourself, I liked playing tennis, in terms of watching all like the majors and stuff like that, but my level, my passion got much more higher when I got the chance to work the US Open last year in New York, and just getting the chance to see a lot of just these athletes up close. And actually Sinner, frankly enough, got the chance to be literally right past me, in terms of what I was working at. So I was getting to see a lot of these athletes at firsthand. And so I really didn't know much about this guy until really last year. And I can really kind of tell why, between him and Alcaraz, obviously. But yeah, we obviously talk about in terms of how tennis is going to be in good hands, right? Women's tennis, obviously we had, the Sharapovas, we had the Venuses, the Serenas and stuff like that. But men's right now, Nick, you were talking about, of course, these 2 guys obviously having already at a young age a lot of slams. Both of these guys, frankly enough, actually were, coming in 2018. So they've had now about 7 years already playing, and the fact that they have at least 3 or more slams at this point in time is fairly impressive. And, guys like Djokovic, obviously, is getting up there in age. But, of course, Djokovic is looked at as one of the all-time greats. Not just a great, but one of the all-time greats. And obviously you can see, in the semifinals.
He is the all-time great.
Well, yeah, but you could obviously make a argument for a lot of other guys. I mean, I think he isn't the all-time great, but you can make an argument for guys like Nadal and guys like Federer and stuff like that,
Yeah.
kind of given their overall track record. But I think that it's kind of like the new passing of the guard in terms of the overall rivalry, where Sinner and Alcaraz, especially where you have not only one of the best French Opens finals that we had for this year, but one of the best tennis matches that we have seen. I mean, going over almost 5 hours, and Alcaraz obviously came up on top, and Sinner, as great as the overall matches have gone against this guy, it just never felt like he never got over the top. Alcaraz really had his number for a lot of the matches that he's had in the past, and we've got the chance now where Sinner has gotten kind of at least his revenge in a little while, because he's gotten the chance to beat him on a really big time overall Grand Slam. So I think it's really cool to see. I think the fact is that they have a lot of respect for each other. I think is another great thing, because a lot of times in rivalries, Nick, not always you're going to have, the two guys that are going to have a lot of great respect. Is kind of more of like, coming at you, this and that. But the admiration that they have is really cool to see. And, two guys I think that you're going to definitely be seeing going head to head for a long period of time.
I think in tennis, they usually do. In tennis, you rarely, at least not in my lifetime, I've never seen a rivalry where two tennis players hate each other. In fact, all the best rivalries in tennis, they actually kind of like each other, or at least are cordial. They get along. Like Federer and Nadal always got along. Djokovic, Andy Murray, they all got along. Sampras and Agassi seemed to have a good relationship. I wasn't really alive for most of that, but that's just how it is in tennis. The culture is a lot different. The culture in tennis is much more respectful. It's not like team sports where you heckle players and things like that. You can't heckle tennis players. I think that in rivalries in general in sports, at least the good ones, I think they tend to respect each other.
Right.
I would say. And like I said, in tennis, usually that's the case. Head to head, Alcaraz beats Sinner 8-5. So he's winning head to head. He's winning the rivalry so far. And he also has one more slam than Sinner does. In terms of Djokovic, I've said this. He's like the LeBron of tennis, or the Brady of tennis. He is in his late 30s, and he's still kicking. He's still has it. He's not the best player in the world anymore. I would say he's probably the third or fourth best player in the world. I mean, this year he had the third best odds to win it at one point. And that's really good for a guy his age. And by the way, he's only a year younger than Nadal. Nadal was Nadal's career was far less sustainable than Djokovic's. I said this last week, but if you were to put it in football terms, Nadal's more like Rodgers and Djokovic is like Brady. Or if you put it in NBA terms, Djokovic is like LeBron and Nadal's like Kobe. I'd rank Nadal higher as a tennis player than Kobe as a basketball player, but that's kind of how it is. Or even another way you could say is Djokovic is like LeBron and Nadal's like Michael Jordan. He was much more athletic. His playing style is much more physically demanding, and it beat up his body a lot more, and he had to retire a lot earlier. Or at least his game went downhill a lot earlier than Djokovic's. And Djokovic might not have anything left, but he still, even if he doesn't, he still has 24 slams, which is the record. And there's a good chance he might win another one. You never know what might happen. Players get knocked out in earlier rounds. It almost happened to Sinner. He was down 2-0, and when Dimitrov ended up retiring, in an earlier round. There's a good chance Sinner would have come back and won anyway, knowing him, but that did happen. In tennis, it's just that it's the storyline is about the rivalry. Not a rivalry in the sense like Yankees, Red Sox, where they hate each other, but the rivalry of greatness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's usually how it is in tennis, and that's what makes tennis that's what makes eras of tennis great usually.
Yeah. And you were talking about how Nadal is to a certain NFL, all-time great, and Djokovic is to Brady. Like, this kind of reminds us of like the old era kind of passing the new torch of like Sinner and Alcaraz is kind of like the Mahomes Burrow ish type of matchup, this or that. It's kind of like it's obviously not like the same per se, but like it's kind of like that overall type of idea, in which for a fact that the league is in good hands. Where like I think with Djokovic obviously unfortunately got hurt. I think in the semifinals, in which he had just had a couple side to side type of movements where he just wasn't looking right, and you definitely could see that when it came to the semifinals, in which just the cross court type of shots where he typically gets to, he just wasn't moving at the best that he usually does. So, I think that he still can play at a really, all-time rate. I just don't think, he is the number one type of guy where you have two emerging guys now since 2018 that are playing at an all-time rate. And Alcaraz, too, has played Djokovic countless times. They've had really, really good matchups. Sinner has had really good matchups against Novak, too. So it's not like those two guys haven't played against Djokovic. Djokovic obviously is not the same guy, like you said, he once was. But, it could be Djokovic Sinner. It could be Djokovic Alcaraz. It could be Alcaraz against Sinner. Tennis specifically, if you typically at least get one of those type of matchup where it gets down to the final, which a lot of the time it does, it should always be a great overall match.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't even say I'd say if anything, it's more like Mahomes Allen.
Mahomes Allen.
That's probably a better. That's probably a better.
Much better.
I'd say that's probably a slightly better example. I'd say, I think. Look, there's a lot left to be played. I think the greatest rivalries were like the big three. Any one of, like, if you pair any two of them, those would be the greatest rivalries. Like any three of those, I would say would be the greatest. But I think this one at least has the potential to be is at least comparable at this stage, because obviously they didn't start off winning 20 slams. Like I would say it's in a similar stage, and in their early 20s. Now that they have 9 total slams, there is a good chance it can get up to that level or something approaching that. There's also a good chance that there's another guy who we haven't heard of yet that will end up joining these ranks.
I think,
that will end up joining these ranks. And USO, what the thing with tennis is, like, what I do like is that most of it goes on at times when nothing else is on, other than the Australian Open. Unfortunately, Australia is on the other side of the world, so they have to do it like in January. Though I'd prefer, if it were up to me, the U.S. Open, like football season would start after the U.S. Open, and the Australian Open would start after football season. But unfortunately, I don't run the sports world. All right, so I do want to talk about my call to WFAN. I actually got on the air.
Oh, wow.
As a caller. It's not the first time I made it on the air as a caller, but it is the first time I made it on the air during a prime time, during morning drive or any sort of prime time slot. So here's the full context of what what we were talking about. The topic on the show was who would you root? It was about like the conflict of rooting interest and if your kid was on the opposing team. So Ben, it would be like if you had a son that played on the Yankees and the Yankees played the Red Sox, something like that. So yeah, first of all, it's a good problem to have if you have kids that are professional athletes. So
yeah, listen,
it's a good problem to have. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But so here's the topic was like, at what point would you root for your team? At what point would you root for your kid? And this is what I had to say. And this is what I had to say.
Imagine a 70-year-old. He just aged us 25 years. I know. I don't want to think of that. Nick in Jersey. What's up, Nick?
Hey, so my question is, what if your team's season is on the line and they need to win this game to go to the playoffs, Jerry? Let's say your kid is on the Giants. The Cowboys need to win this game in order to make the playoffs, but the Giants' season they're completely out of it no matter what, but the Cowboys need to win this game. What do you do?
It's a very easy answer. 23-year-old me would say I want to kick the crap out of the Giants, but the 51-year-old in me with kids, I'm rooting for my kid. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
All right. Now, there's more to keep playing. I'm going to resume it.
Okay.
I don't know because I'm not a father, and even if you are a father, you still don't know because your kid most likely is not going to be has never sniffed playing professional sports. Although you might get a little bit of a sense of it, like you might get a little bit of the feeling watching your kids compete when they're younger. So most people are not in those shoes, and it's very hard to like really know. And I think most of us are somewhere in the middle. I'd say most of us are somewhere in the middle where it's like, it's not completely one or the other. It's not like you lose all interest in your own team. And by the way, let me just say, I did say afterwards, even in like a meaningless game, I tried to push him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't think he would answer this way. I thought he would say, well, in that scenario, I'm going to root for my team. But they hung up on me right away. I guess they were just going through a bunch of calls.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just how it was. I made my point and they didn't need to hear from me further. And that's a fair point. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I do want to hear from you a little bit because there was a caller earlier who said, my nephew is on, I think he was talking about the Jets. He said, my nephew's on the Patriots and now we're all Patriots. When it came to the Jets, I felt nothing. And I was just like, I could never feel that way. Like I could never feel nothing when it comes to the Jets. And also the other question is I do want to, because like, I actually really thought that like he would say, well, in that scenario, I would root for my team.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts on this are. It's not even something I ever even really considered. Until I was listening to the radio that day.
It's really interesting. I mean, obviously, if my kid was playing on the Yankees, I mean, of course, there's nothing I can do, right? Of course, as an overall type of father, of course, I'm going to support him. It's obviously going to feel extremely awkward because my whole entire adulthood was being a Red Sox fan. And for me, myself, I guess if you could take a look at it, I'm going to support him specifically, but the overall team aspect of it, it's going to be tough for him to support in that way, right?
Right. I see what you're saying.
Because, obviously, if he was if he played for the Red Sox, I'd support him not only personally, but the overall type of team. In this case, I'm only going to support him in half of a way, in which, I hope you hit 20 or 35 home runs. But I'm not going to go out of my way and say, now let's go Yankees per se. That's just not me. I can't have that. It's like me specifically, completely, wearing a Giants jersey because Rafael Devers is now in the San Francisco Giants. No, I like Rafael Devers, but I'm not a San Francisco Giants fan. My kid specifically is not playing for the San Francisco Giants. So it's just, I always think in terms of sports, team comes first when it comes to your overall personal fan. I mean, people obviously follow players, and I 100% agree in terms of, players, overall sons, if obviously you were playing specifically on a certain team, you'd support them. But I'm not going to go out of my way, especially if it's a rivalry type of team. I'm going to support him, but I'm not going to support the team, if you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying, although those two things are not totally connected. It also kind of depends on what the thing is that if your kid is on a professional sports team, you can't really support him without supporting the team. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not really rooting for your kid if you're not rooting for the team to win, in a sense. It's kind of impossible to do. And I also the other question is And I think, like I said, I think the truth is it's really just a middle ground. Like I said, that caller before that said, now that my nephew's on the Patriots, I'm like rooting for the Patriots. It's like, no, that's a little different. But there is a difference between rooting for your kid or rooting for that team to win because your kid is on that team and rooting for that team. Like, I think it makes perfect sense to root for the team that your kid is on. But if you're like a Yankee fan, even if your kid is on the Red Sox, it would be weird to like wear a Red Sox hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like that to me is a little weird because now it's like you're not even rooting for your kid. You're rooting for like that's repping the team. You know what I mean? Like that to me is a little different. And to me, like I just think like different scenarios are just really different. Like if the season is like in the scenario, and Jerry Recco is a Cowboy fan, the season is just if the season is just done for the Giants and your kid's on the Giants, like why does it really matter that much if the Giants win? Like so the Giants go 7-10 instead of 6-11.
Yeah.
Like does that really matter that much? Like whereas the Cowboys need this in order to like make it in order to like make the playoffs. To me, like that's like I would just be like, okay, yeah, it doesn't really matter in that scenario. But let me play the rest of the audio because Chris McMonagle, who was co-hosting, kind of took my side on it. Well, actually, I asked the question. It's not really clear from the audio from the phone call which side I'm on, but I made it very clear which side. So he kind of took my side on it.
And I really believe almost everybody else out there would too.
Yeah, you do have an example. I do have the kids. They're 6 and 8, and I've coached their teams. Mm-hmm. We're still not at the point where like the score is legitimate.
Like it's fun
yet. Like I have yet to coach a game where it's like intense and we talk about it the day before. It's like big game coming up. There's a big one, you win this one, we move on to states or whatever like that. Like, so I haven't been there yet where it's mostly just been working on his skill set as opposed to worrying about whether or not they win or lose. So I haven't felt that juice yet. Maybe that would change me. But yeah, I mean, to his point, I don't think it's crazy to me. Like, do you think it's crazy? Like, in that scenario, my son's a Red Sox. He's the first baseman for the Boston Red Sox. Right. They're in dead last, and I need the Yankees to win a game to get to the postseason. I'm a bad guy if I want the Yankees to win that game.
Yeah, that's the rest of the audio. And it's like, yeah, in that case, I have to say I very much agree. Or in your case, it's the opposite. Yankees are in dead last. And your kid's on the Yankees and the Red Sox need the game to make the playoffs. Like that to me, like I'm not like in that case, it's like, does it really matter if they win that game or not? It changes nothing.
Yeah, no, like that's actually also a really good point too. It's also like in terms of where the teams are specifically, like if the Red Sox were complete dead last and you were supporting your kid who was a Yankee and they were a game away and he had a certain time where he was up, for a home run opportunity or something like that, like, okay, like, yeah, like, that case, it's like, it's what it is, like, go root for your kid. Like, he's obviously, I think family comes first specifically over kind of how your fandom's going to be. So I'm going to take that overall type of side. Like, it would pay me for myself to, have a kid that was a Yankee, but like, I'm going to support him. Like, if he hits one for the team to win, I'm going to do it.
Well, I think there's other questions too that we didn't get to, which is also like, at what level of family? It's like, okay, like there's kid, like your own kid, but then there's like nephew, cousin. Like at what point does that personal connect? Like there are different levels, not even just with family, just with personal connections. Like, or like what if like we had a friend or something, like a good friend that was on one of these teams? Like it's a similar type of question. It's not the same level as a child, but it's like it's the same type of thing. Which is like, at what point do you like root for your friend? At what point do you root for your team?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like that's another thing. Like if it's a cousin, if I had a cousin on the Patriots, I don't know. I don't think I could root for. If I had also the other question is like where they play on that team. Like, is it the starting quarterback or the starting pitcher, or is it like a bench player? That has something to do with it too, I think. Like, if I had a cousin who was like a special teams player on the Patriots, I don't think I'd be rooting for the Patriots.
Right.
But if I had like a son or something like that, who was like the starting quarterback on the Patriots, that changes the math quite a bit.
Yeah, no, like that's a great point too. Is like if my son was a quarterback for the New York Jets, and I had people asking me in terms of like, why are you all of a sudden going crazy for your rivalry type team? Dude, my son is the starting quarterback. Like I think he can hopefully understand specifically where I'm getting from. So yeah, I mean if they were asking, where's your son play for the Jets specifically? I know obviously you're a Pats fan. He's on the third string quarterback depth chart. They'd be like, okay, all right, be like whatever type of thing, right? Like they'd be happy for me, like my son, but like they're not gonna go, oh my god, like that's insane. Like instead of like say like my son was Garrett Wilson or Jamar Chase, right? A household type of name where your kid obviously will be like that. Like if you were like a Steeler fan, but your son was Joe Burrow, right? Kind of the overall comp I'm getting to.
Yeah, exactly. Like that changes it a lot. The other question is the other part of it is like the degree of your fandom. That's another thing. Like, is it your favorite team in all of sports, or is it like your fourth favorite team?
Yeah,
in all of sports. Like, I'm an Islander fan, kind of, but I'm not really like I'm an Islander fan, but I'm not a big hockey fan.
Yeah.
And of all the teams I root for, the Islanders are probably the one I care about the least. Like, so something like that, it would be like it wouldn't
hit as bad. Like
it wouldn't matter. I mean, the idea of a relative of mine playing in the NHL is more cartoonish than playing in like the NFL because I don't know anybody in my family who plays hockey, but or can even skate. But in that hypothetical scenario, it's a little different because like I don't care nearly as much about the Islanders as I do say the Jets. And so like that, or like even a team like just say St. John's or something like that. Like I'm a St. John's fan, but like, and I follow the team, but I don't follow them the way I follow like the Mets or the Jets or the Knicks or anything like that. Like they're not they're far from being my number one team.
Like a super fan type.
Right. So I guess that would have a lot to do with it also. But like for me, it's like I just don't think it's so black and white. I think there's a lot of gray area. And I do think there's a difference between rooting for the individual and rooting for the team. Like for how long have we heard about like Cavs fans just being LeBron fans?
Yeah,
and that always seems
Warrior fans, during the Steph Curry days.
Yeah,
Were you truly a fan of that team before like the big three really came to fruition, or were you just kind of like on them, like people were going to be?
Yeah, exactly. Moving the goalposts is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, rubbing your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. So speaking of the Jets and our teams,
the
Jets extended Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner were both received 4-year contract extensions. Sauce Gardner worth $120.4 million, and Garrett Wilson $130 million for the next 4 years. And overall, like we'll have to like. It depends whether or not these are good moves. I like the Garrett Wilson extension a lot more than the Sauce Gardner extension. Football is not basketball where players individually, star players that are young, you got to sign them early. It's it's obviously different. Like you're not going to have it, and it's not like with a quarterback either, where you have to like hold on to your star quarterbacks. Like if you look at a team like Oklahoma City, and we can talk about that too, but like they sign like their young players to big contracts. But that's because like Oklahoma City just won a championship, and with those guys, they make them a good team. Right. Whereas in football, you can have a Hall of Fame cornerback, you can have a Hall of Fame running back, you can have a Hall of Fame wide receiver, all on the same team and stink. That can happen. I mean, I think, and the thing is like, I like the Garrett Wilson signing a lot more because I just like the way Garrett Wilson has played a lot more than Sauce Gardner. I think Sauce Gardner is very overrated. I don't think he's good enough to have a nickname. He was hyped up a lot coming out of college. But ultimately, it really, like, the Jets just have to get everything else together. And maybe it's a good move if they do all of those other things. But otherwise, it would be like, it would just be the equivalent of somebody who's like in debt, can barely afford rent, but has like 2 really nice sports cars.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it would be like, because you would just be spending all this money on 2 great players for no reason. I mean, the good news is they're both young, and they're going to be young by the time the contracts like come up. But both of these positions, uniquely, I would say, are dependent on the rest of the team. I mean, wide receivers, they have to have a quarterback to throw to them. Mm-hmm. Like they're not like, and you know, to some degree in football, everybody's dependent on each other, but wide receivers really are dependent. Like if you have no quarterback, you can't really have good numbers. And corners are really also, like, it's underrated how dependent they are on the rest of their defense. Like corners, like they can cover wide receivers for a couple of seconds, but if there's no pressure on the quarterback, that's going to hurt them a lot. So there is a really good chance that even if Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner end up being great, that it could be a waste of money.
Yeah, I listened to I watched it. You know, you call me crazy, but I actually watch a Jets podcast, like for a kid that's kind of like we're our age, and it's because, you know, I followed him on X. He does a really good job with the Jets type of stuff, and he was actually talking about the Garrett Wilson extension yesterday. And, you know, of course, the Sauce Gardner, you know, extension talks were kind of right around it. And, you know, the Garrett Wilson, apparently, like, I don't know if, like, he has any type of sources per se, but, like, he's met Garrett Wilson multiple times, like, kind of has a good idea in terms of who he is and stuff like that. And I don't know if he has, like, any type of other, you know, insight, but he was mentioning how the talks with Garrett Wilson actually were much tougher with the Jets, you know, kind of beforehand than Sauce.
Sorry, who was saying this? Who was saying this?
Jake Osman. He does stuff specifically. He has the Jake Osman show on YouTube.
I think I know that name.
He also is talking to Michael K in the past as well too, on the Michael K show. Really good kid. I've never met him before, but he just seems like he at least has a little bit of insight when it comes to just maybe some like media circles or whatever kind of with the team. But he was talking about how he felt like the Garrett Wilson like when they got the extension on for Garrett Wilson, he kind of had a feeling like the Sauce one was kind of coming right after the fact, because the Garrett Wilson extension a little bit more tougher because of the type of like receiver that he is. And obviously, you know, he is in the upper echelon of type of receivers, you know, like the Jamar Chases of the world. And so once the Jets got that done, you know, Sauce obviously was going to be the next guy, you know, to kind of follow suit. I agree with you when it comes to Sauce. I do think he's a little overrated. I think, though, you know, a cornerback having a true number 1 type of cornerback, whether you want to say it or not, I think is massive. And I think, you know, for the Jets, especially when he's really young, you know, a 3 to 4 year type of contract isn't really going to kill you by the end of it, because, like, you know, going out and paying guys specifically, you just don't know in terms of how a lot of these corners are going to be. I mean, heck, Christian Gonzalez, you know, could have a kind of a down year this upcoming year. I don't think he's going to, but I'm not going to go out of my way and say, listen, like, the guy shouldn't be paid. I mean, this guy specifically is a young kid, and I think he's going to have a lot more better years than not. So, like, I kind of look at that with the same thing with Sauce. Like, I think Sauce, like, I hope that Sauce continues to downfall as an overall Pats fan, but, like, looking as unbiased for the sake, I think Sauce is a really good fit for this overall type of team. And two, Nick, Aaron Glenn, we talked about obviously, Aaron Glenn becoming a defensive type of coach. I think he might be able to fit the overall type of system that Aaron Glenn might have compared to maybe some.
Well, so was Robert Saleh.
Right, but also when you kind of take a look at some of the defensive type of coaches, they have different type of systems also. Like, it's not going to be always the same type of overall system when you have one defensive coach over another one. I mean, sometimes it's the same, but like I also have seen kind of different coaches in which you may be able to fit the overall type of, style better. Some obviously play, man, some obviously play zone, right? Obviously it just kind of, it depends really, but I think, the number one win for this overall thing is Justin Fields, because Justin Fields now is known for a fact that he has a guy for, at least for his contract. Justin Fields has a 2-year contract with the New York Jets. But I think that, Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields, if you remember, they played each other at Ohio State. So I think that, if
they played with each other.
With each other, yeah. So, I mean, I think that this is a massive win for Justin Fields, because you can take a look at this long-term plan and be like, listen, like, I'm in a true number one for the next 4 years, and I'm in a 2-year type of contract. Maybe if, if the Jets, obviously with Fields, does really, really well with the overall type of team, which I think he will be, you wouldn't be shocked if, he went to state for another couple more years. And, I think with the Jets, they're kind of in a certain, transition where they feel like that they're really close enough to try to get themselves into a playoff spot. And I think when you pay these two type of guys, where you have arguably the best player offensively and arguably the best player defensively, I think the Jets are looking at a pretty good spot right now.
Yeah, no, I generally agree. All I'm saying is, like, we just don't know, because look, both of these guys were on the team last year too, and what ended up happening. And the Jets this year, even with both of them, and it's not that I'm saying it's a bad move. It really just depends on everything else they do. If the Jets are going to be one of the worst teams in football, what's the point of spending all of that money, in total $250 million over the next 4 years, when if you're just going to stink anyway? And I'm not saying that should be their attitude of just putting their hands up and saying we're going to stink anyway, it doesn't matter. But they just have to do everything else right too. It's not like signing a quarterback where it's like that's the goal in and of itself. I mean, obviously there's other things, like you need the offensive linemen and things like that, but like you can be so, like, the Jets can be a bad team with Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, as we saw last season. I mean, I guess the good thing about this year is that they'll have the thing with the Jets this season is that they'll have their coaching situation will be a bit better. Anything is better than Jeff Ulbrich, which like that was just unbelievably
that
bad.
Is a pretty low bar, but heck, you're gonna take that.
It's a low bar, although I will have to say there's a really good chance the quarterback situation is probably worse. I think that they're in a worse place in terms of the quarterback situation. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Justin Fields. This is now his third stop. It didn't work out with the Bears. It didn't work out with the Steelers. I
disagree with Pittsburgh. I actually thought in Pittsburgh, like the Steelers were kind of in a weird spot quarterback wise. I didn't really even think he played that bad before they went to Raleigh. The Bears, I think that he was in a really tough situation there. He was just not on a very good team. So I think, I mean, I'm not like a, off the rails type of Justin Fields fan. Like, I liked him obviously out of college. I do think that, Aaron Rodgers is probably a better, safer type of bet. But I don't think that Justin Fields at times too had the right, he wasn't fair all the time, specifically when it came to a lot of his teams I was on.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, that's fair. Like, to say it didn't work out with the Steelers, well, I wouldn't say it didn't work out with the Steelers. I would probably rephrase that, but like they didn't want to keep him. Like, that's kind of how I would put it. But the point is that like the Bears and the Steelers, they're both teams that just they can never seem to get their offense right. They're just not well run, either of them, it seems like. I mean, the Steelers, they're a storied franchise, but like in recent years, the past decade or so, they have not been a well-run franchise.
Yeah.
And the Jets, the problem is the Jets also fit that description. Like, it would be one thing if the Jets were like they had a really good offensive-minded head coach. They really have a good system, and they have a good GM, and their whole situation is figured out. But that's the opposite of the Jets. Nobody would look at the Jets and say that. You don't even need to be a sports fan to know that. That's a clown show of an organization. They might be a bigger clown show of an organization than the Bears and the Steelers. So if it didn't work out with the Bears, what makes me think it's going to work out with the Jets? And Aaron Glenn's a defensive-minded head coach, and that's fine. I'm fine with defensive-minded head coaches, but it's like when you have a young quarterback who's still developing that we're kind of unsure about, is a defensive-minded head coach really the best scenario?
No.
Like it really just isn't. In some defensive mind, I'm not saying Aaron Glenn is going to fit this description. I don't know. But, some defensive-minded head coaches, especially when they've spent a lot of time as defensive coordinators, aren't really involved in the offense. Robert Saleh was not involved in the offense. He was a very good defensive mind, but he really wasn't very involved in the offense, and that was a problem. And I'm worried that Aaron Glenn might also be like that. Now, I'm not saying he definitely will, and he did say that he wants to be very involved in the offense and everything. It's easy to talk a big game before it ever actually happens, so I don't know if I believe it yet. I mean, I remember when Mike McCagnon was hired as the GM, he always talked a big game, and everybody was all excited, and he kind of stunk. It was just it was right after they fired John Idzik, who was one of the worst GMs in the history of football. So I don't really know. It's a similar situation now. We saw most of the season under Jeff Ulbrich, who was just the biggest disaster we could have imagined. So Aaron Glenn is probably a step up.
But how much of a step up?
I would say probably a pretty big step up, but it doesn't just because it's a big step up doesn't mean it's the best thing they could have done.
Yes. Yeah.
Like with the situation with Justin Fields, I would rather see an offensive-minded head coach. That's what I'd rather see with a young quarterback in that situation. I wanted to see them hire Doug Peterson. That's not a popular opinion. It doesn't matter anymore. They're not getting him. It's not worth talking about. But my thought process was why do we need another former defensive coordinator as the next Jets head coach? It's just doing the same with no experience and with a rookie, not a rookie, but a young quarterback who's kind of developing that we're unsure about. I just don't think it's very likely that this works out very well, which is why I didn't like the hire. If anything, we would have been better off with just another year with Aaron Rodgers. That most likely would have been better. I don't think that Justin Fields is just going to catch all this magic all of a sudden going to the Jets. That just doesn't make sense. The Jets don't get the most out of their quarterbacks. They're one of the teams that is actually the worst, especially with young quarterbacks. Geno Smith and Sam Darnold kind of prove it. So to me, that was always an issue. And that's going to be an issue with Garrett Wilson. Not so much with Sauce Gardner, obviously, but with Garrett Wilson, that can very much be an issue because if your quarterback can't get it together, then how's that going to work with the wide receiver? So that's another issue that I have. And they, for both of these guys, they have 4 years to kind of figure it out, which is actually a fairly high amount of time. I mean, I guess it's possible that it could work out pretty well, that they can make that work. But they're going to have to make it work. Otherwise, they're just wasting money. That's the thing. Otherwise, they're just wasting money.
And one more thing before we move on is I do think a lot of times when you extend your young guys, a lot of times too is, obviously the biggest thing is they want to get paid. But another thing is, okay, you're going to have a 4-year type of plan. Okay, what is the plan going to look like? I think a lot of the times when your agent and the front office obviously is talking to you, a lot of times, I mean, of course, the Jets have been known for an organization where they've made a massive lot of mistakes. But there has to be a certain type of situation of okay, here is our long-term outlook. How is it going to look? Because it doesn't make sense to sign a 4-year whatever type of contract that you're getting unless you don't know a certain short-term plan and a long-term type of plan in place. I mean, of course, Garrett Wilson got paid because, yes, he obviously is the Jets. He's going to be the number one type of option. Of course, that maybe is just an overall factor. But a lot of these type of athletes, when they're in an organization specifically where they're not I mean, no offense to the Jets per se, Nick, but like the Jets haven't been winning something in a long, long time of time.
They haven't made the playoffs in half my life.
Yeah, so it's like, when Garrett Wilson looks at it like for 4 years and says, okay, like I really, really, really want to win, it's like, okay, like am I going to be here for the next 4 years to 8 years, knowing for a fact that I want to have myself to try to win a Super Bowl, or like, I mean, of course you can make it in two ways, but or do I really just want to be paid as one of the biggest receivers in the league, of course, which he's going to be. But sometimes you want to have the fact of kind of both ways also too. So I do think that with these two contract extensions, there had to be some type of communication between the front office and, of course, like the staff and stuff.
Well, yeah, obviously. And like I said, we just have to wait and see. Like,
yeah,
like they can't, like it's just that's just how football is. It's very dependent on a bunch of other things. And, we've seen football players, really great players, have their careers be just wasted on bad teams. We've seen that. And part of me thinks that like a player like Garrett Wilson just doesn't deserve to be on the Jets. He deserves better. Yeah. Part of me really feels that way.
But
and similar to Saquon, sure, it sucks for Giant fans that Saquon Barkley's not on the Giants anymore, but let's face it, you'd have a losing record, you would have missed the playoffs, even if you were to be really generous with the amount of games Saquon Barkley would have won you would just be wasting Saquon Barkley's career, and your team would really just be getting a worse draft pick. Like your situation wouldn't be that much different. And I'm worried that might be the case with Garrett Wilson, which is how it was last year. The difference with Sauce Gardner is that Sauce Gardner had a bad year. He wasn't good at all. And part of that was, in fairness, was the Jets defense overall was bad. The Jets defense suffered a lot after they fired Saleh, and that's going to affect a young player like Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
The good news is that he's still young. And the thing with corners is that they're hard to come, really great corners that they're hard to come by, and their window is short, very uniquely short. So when you pay them a lot of money for a short period of time, usually before they turn 30. And, that's usually, but if you look at the best corners, it's always short-lived. Terrell Reeves, Richard Sherman, Josh Norman, it's all like this. It's like a new guy every couple of years. That always seems to be how it works. And the Jets last year had two really good corners, but like one of the worst defenses. Like they had, how many teams have one good corner, let alone two? The Jets had two, and their defense was terrible. How do you do that? All right, I want to talk about this. Fox Sports had a whole bunch of cancellations. I don't know if you heard about this. They canceled 3 TV shows. They canceled 3 TV shows. They canceled Breakfast Ball, Speak, which used to be called Speak for Yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
So they basically went from speak for yourself to Speak. They shortened it to now it's nothing. So they kept shortening it. And The Facility. And I'm really surprised by this, actually. Apparently it was because of low ratings. It seems like, I mean, I guess that might. It seems like there's been a lot of like cancellations on sports TV shows. It happened with Around the Horn, and people were like freaking out about it that Around the Horn got canceled. I mean, I get it's a sentimental thing, but if I don't ever watch Around the Horn the rest of my life, I'm not losing any sleep. I'm fine with it. I mean, I just think that like sports, people have to understand that television, and nobody really cares that any of these shows are canceled. I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm just saying like they weren't around for like 20 years like Around the Horn was, so there's no real attachment to them for most people. Right. And I think that there's a few things with sports TV, and it seems like with some of these shows, I mean, The Facility and Breakfast Ball were very, very new, and the content seemed to be a little bit different. And the truth is, when it comes to sports television, it seems like there's like a few guys, a few people that really make it work. Stephen A. Smith is great at it. Shannon Sharp, when there's no scandals in his personal life and he can actually be on television, is great. Skip Bayless was great, despite people not liking a lot of not liking Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless and saying they ruin sports media.
Yeah,
that's like when people say Steph Curry ruined basketball. Like people are taking threes all the time. It's like that. If you're good enough to ruin something, that means you're really great at it. Like if you're good enough to quote unquote ruin sports television, then you were just great at it. And the thing is that I think that they were trying to like do things a lot different. If you look at the shows that really lasted, it's the shows that really like that have been around longer, and they kind of knew what they were. It was like a format that worked a lot better. The show like First Things First. The show, I mean, The Herd, it's a radio show, but it's simulcast on TV. That worked really well because Colin Cowherd is he's a very compelling personality, and people wanted to watch him, and he's been on the air for a long time. And a show like First Take, something like these debate type of shows. Whereas with these shows, it seems like they were trying all sorts of new things with people that weren't on TV very long, if at all. I mean, some of these shows, I mean, Joy Taylor was on TV for a long time, but she was never really like a main host. She was never like on that level. She was usually like, she was on The Herd for a little bit. She was the host on
like a villain, like a sidekick villain.
Not even like that, but just like the role was different. It was like a lesser role, it seems like. And they were trying to like make it work in all of these ways. I mean, Craig Carton is one of the greatest radio personalities ever, not just sports radio, but radio. And it didn't really work on TV all that well, I guess. I mean, I don't know how bad the ratings were. I mean, the ratings right now, I can't imagine would be that good. It's the middle of the summer. There's not much to talk about. So and Emmanuel Acho's been on Fox Sports a while now. In terms of that, I know Joy Taylor is not going to be on. I think they let her go completely. Just because a show gets canceled doesn't mean the personality gets let go. They might have other plans for them. That certainly could be the case. I don't know how much of this you saw. I was just shocked that they made this, that they canceled all of them, that the ratings were this bad. I don't know. I haven't looked at them, but it seems like they just felt like they had to make a move.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get the chance to really watch a lot of these. It wasn't because I
don't have a lot of time to watch TV. Like I often watch games after they happen because I don't have time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for Fox Sports, I mean, of course, I knew, of course, a lot of the guys. I mean, Emmanuel Acho, obviously Joy Taylor, Rob Parker, obviously has done a lot of stuff with them. Also, who was it? LaShawn McCoy. Obviously, there's guys specifically that, of course, were either former players or just kind of journeyman type of hosts and stuff like that. But I agree with you. I didn't feel like a lot of these type of overall shows were kind of taking off per se. And I think, the Joy Taylor, of course, there was, of course, that stuff, kind of already off the scenes.
Yeah, that was a pretty, that may have been a good enough reason to let her go, I would say.
I mean, there was, of course, kind of a telling, sake of, if you're obviously in the next, couple of months, just be prepared, you just might not have a job for the foreseeable future. Yeah. Not because of that specific, but we're talking the whole entire network might be on the move also, with a lot of these type of shows being canceled. But yeah, I just never I was never really attached to them already for myself. If it was one thing, for me, I like watching First Take more, and I watch, the one in the morning on ESPN.
Get Up.
Get Up, yeah. I'll watch that, kind of more than I'd watch the other stuff on Fox Sports. There's just so many different type of sports, channels now with different type of shows. It's of course there's probably a fan base out there that is totally devastated of this news. How can you make this but I'm not looking to the whole entire sports media industry and just saying, wow, this is a tragic type of Like around the horn, I felt like there was a lot more like scrutiny of like, oh, like damn, like that of course was a show that was just all on for a long period of time. These just never really took off, so I just doesn't. Yeah, of course it sucks for these overall type of anchors and the people of course were doing these because of course they're not having a job right now. But like it
they're
wasn't.
still going to be getting. I mean, they're like professional athletes that get guaranteed contracts. They're still going to be paid.
They're gonna be making money regardless, and like I feel like you could definitely probably figure something out. Whether it's a radio show or a podcast. People do podcasts now, Nick, just like it's out of the woodwork. I mean, even like there's a guy specifically on WEI in Boston that was on like the midday show, and he hasn't been doing that for a long period of time, but he does podcasting. Like he's still doing something with the overall type of business. Huh?
You're talking about Glenn Ordway?
No, Andy Gresham.
Oh, okay. I think I know that name.
But like Andy Gresh was a guy that was on the midday show. Of course, he was there for a long period of time. But like a lot of these people in Fox Sports, like of course, congrats to them specifically on terms of what they were doing. But I just didn't really feel like it was so long enough where I can like even like for me, like I don't even watch it anyway. But like for a lot of people that even watch it a lot, like can remember like these type of shows because they just really never took off.
Yeah, like I think it's certainly possible that they just never got a fair chance. And some of these shows, like there is, I think it seems like there is this perception with when you put former athletes on TV. Like, let's be honest, former athletes often jump the line when it comes to being on like TV personalities, and some of them are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are not. Some of them, many of them are not, and they're only put on there because they're former athletes. Shannon Sharpe is an amazing TV personality. He could have been a TV personality even if he wasn't a former athlete. But I mean, Paul Pierce, LaShawn McCoy, Keyshawn Johnson, they're not great personalities in terms of talking about sports on TV. They're not really like that. Like, they're not Shannon Sharpe. And like that's going to have a lot of I just don't think they're compelling in the same way just because they're former athletes. And also sometimes these former athletes, they only really have expertise on the sports that they played. So it's like, okay, Paul Pierce can talk about basketball. LaShawn McCoy can talk about football. It's like we know that, but just because they can talk about one sport doesn't mean they can talk about everything that they talk about.
Yeah. Dan Orlovsky in football, right? If I wanted to run a basketball show, like I like Dan Orlovsky. I mean, of course, there's a lot of people that don't like Dan Orlovsky, but I like Dan Orlovsky. I mean, of course, just my overall, like he's a Connecticut type of guy. I got the chance to bump into him out of crazy for my work, which was insane. And just like the overall type of, I think he's just good on air. I mean, that's just, of course, ESPN actually just put into a 3 to 4 year type of extension with the network. So, like, that's the type of guy where, like, if I want to get a certain type of, football take, I go to him because, of course, he has that. But, like, I'm not going to go to him and be like, hey, I'm doing a hockey show. Do you know if you're like he probably, I don't know in terms of if Dan supports a hockey team, but, like, say, like, as a Ranger fan, like, I'm not going to go right to him and be like, so, Dan, how do you feel about the Rangers? Right? Because, like, he's probably just an overall type of hockey fan, like, he could be a diehard for all I know, but I'm not expecting it because because of what the stuff that he runs on TV.
Well,
so like,
the thing is, I think I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
The thing is that like, I think Keyshawn Johnson, like he used to be on ESPN. He was on Monday Night Countdown. He was on the pregame show every Sunday, and he was really good on that. Like I thought Keyshawn Johnson as an analyst was really good. It's just not the same thing as doing a daily sports show as like all sports show. It's obviously completely different. Like analysts have to know a lot about that sport, which you obviously do as a former player, but it's not the same thing as having a take about everything.
Yeah.
And in fairness, like you said, maybe these shows just didn't really have a fair chance. Like maybe the reason the ratings apparently weren't so good is because they're just new shows that never really got a chance to take off, and people are watching what they were watching beforehand. And by the way, there were talks about bad ratings about a whole lot of ESPN shows too. I mean, Get Up had terrible, from what I heard at least. Get Up seemed to have bad ratings when it first started 7 years ago, and it's still on now.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not the overall show that doesn't do well; it's the people that are part. Like, if you get the right people and the show's obviously kicking ass, then of course you're expecting good results.
Yeah.
But if you have a pretty good show and like say like one of the people either left or just they don't have that certain type of guy that's like yes, like that's the guy that kind of runs it, then it's like well, it doesn't hit the same or it's just not it's good anymore.
Yeah, and like I said, TV is just like it just seems to be I guess radio's very much like this too. Like it's all just a very like fickle business, and
it's the luck of the draw essentially. It's basically in terms of like if you come in like so I like watching the Michael K show right with obviously Don LaGreca and Pete Rosenberg, and I mean now do I watch at midday with Alan Kahn, Don LaGreca, and Pete Rosenberg as much? Probably not. Like Michael K, to me specifically, was kind of the guy in terms of kind of leading the overall pack. Like I like Don LaGreca. Of course, congratulations to him being the new voice of the Devils this upcoming season, by the way. But like those really weren't the guys specifically I really watch the show because I mean they're great, don't get me wrong, but I'm watching it because of a certain guy. So sometimes it's like the show, if you like the overall show, but there's a certain type of person like this, First Take. I think a lot of people like First Take because of Stephen A. Smith or Molly.
It's not just Stephen A. Smith the way like it's not even just like the way he is on TV, which used to be the whole thing, but it's also the way he runs the show. The fact that he has like recurring guests to talk about different things, like Mad Dog is on every Wednesday and things like that. Like the way he runs it is very, very good. He knows what he's doing because of his years of experience.
Yeah.
And look, to me, I'm not one to bash TV people for their shows failing. Look, failure is just a part of the business. And if you do a lot of stuff, you're going to fail. It's just a reality. Like that's going to happen at some point, especially when you're trying new things. Like a lot of these people were new to television. So it just makes sense on some level that they might not get it right away. Like Craig Carton is a great radio personality. Like the ratings prove it. He was never on TV before.
Right.
And by the way, it doesn't mean that I don't think he can be successful on TV. It just didn't work this particular time. It doesn't mean that he couldn't be on. Now, the question is he going to go back to the Fan? I don't. There were talks about him going back to WFAN, but it's not even clear to me that he's out at Fox Sports. His TV show was just canceled. They might have other plans for him. So I don't really know. Maybe they use him as a contributor. Like that does happen a lot. Like when they just have a lot of news channels do this too. They have people that just hop on different shows as contributors. It's hard to see him in that role because I see him as a host. But that certainly could be the case. It was always weird, like because he was in New York for so many years. I always thought of him as like a New York personality, and then he became a national personality. It was just so different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's all I can say is TV, radio. It's a very fickle business, and they can just podcasting is less like that. Podcasting is a lot less like that. If you run your own podcast and you have a whole bunch of viewers, unlike us. And you're bringing in a ton of money, it's a little different, than with TV and radio. But yeah, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the home run derby. All right, who cares?
Yeah. I'll just say this.
Cal Raleigh wins the home run derby.
I made a bet and I picked the right guy. So that was it.
All right. So you picked the right guy. First time a catcher won the home run derby, which actually kind of surprised me. But yeah, he like leads the league. Wait, is he the league leader in home runs?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, he's leading it right now. And speaking really quickly, make sure if you guys want to listen to more Cal Raleigh talk, watch me and Ryan on this past week on Playback on the Baseball Bonanza as we talked about Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge, the MVP debates.
Here's one more thing about that. Yeah. Here's the question. Will it mess up his swing like the home run derby has done for a lot of other guys?
I don't think so because they're like, you just kind of know, like with some, like Jazz Chisholm, I think, is an example of a guy specifically in which, I mean, he kind of was in it because of the overall show. I don't think specifically he was in just because he's a power threat. Cal Raleigh just has the overall type of swing that I think it's just kind of natural to him where it's not going to really affect him compared to some other guys. And two, if anything, I mean, you look at Juan Soto, for instance, a couple years ago where he had a horrific first half, went to the home run derby. People thought specifically he was absolutely crazy, and then had one of the best second halves that he's had in his career. So for some guys specifically, it's great, and for some other guys, it's not. But I think when Cal Raleigh sticks, just the overall type of swing that he has, I think it's not going to affect him.
Yeah. All right, so that's our show this week. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Ben Kruse. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart, Ben at Ben Kruse144. You can follow them to the Bench Network at ETB Network, and this podcast across social media at MTGP ETB. I'll be back next week. See you guys then.